But the Biden administration has been busy trying to spin last Friday's horrible jobs report. The U.S. economy adding 266,000 jobs, nearly a million were expected. Biden today saying his enhanced unemployment benefits, which of course disincentivize work, had nothing to do with this bad number.
I know there's been a lot of discussion since Friday's report, that people are being paid to stay home rather than go to work. Well, we don't see much evidence of that.
Well, here's some evidence right here. Right now, there are millions of jobs open in this country, and only 266,000 of them were filled in April. Here's a headline from CNBC today. Restaurants are sucking wind, but fighting back to reopen amid a worker shortage. If you've talked to anybody that owns a restaurant or a bar right now, you know that story. They can't get people to come back to work. Economists at Bank of America say the combined unemployment benefits mean that anyone earning less than $32,000 a year could receive more income from unemployment aid taken from their previous jobs. And even if it's not more, you could make $32,000 a year laying around doing nothing, or make maybe $40,000 by going back to work. I think for a lot of people that's a pretty easy choice. But the press secretary left unemployment insurance off her list of reasons for the bad jobs report today.
We actually see the data and our analysis shows that lack of vaccination, the lower rate, which is why I referred to the data and the week that it was taken, it has an impact. Child care has an impact. Schools reopening has an impact.
It certainly does, and perhaps the White House should have come down a little harder on those teachers' unions rather than pander for the first 3 months. Although most of the country has returned to common sense, blue state restrictions on putting kids in class, of course, is still a problem. If the kids aren't in school, then the parents can't really go back to work as effectively as they could. Florida's Ron DeSantis pushed for schools to open last fall. That's why Florida's unemployment rate is half of New York and California's. It is. Also today, Biden saying he wants to help the restaurant industry, which has been slammed by government regulations.
Employers can hire back their laid-off workers part-time without those workers having to give up all their unemployment benefits.
In reality, we need restaurants and bars fully open, along with, frankly, the rest of society. Restaurant owners would love to hire their old employees back, but don't need them full-time yet until they're at full capacity. On the other side, who's giving up that much free unemployment money to go back to work at a half-empty restaurant? One funny moment you might have missed: after saying the unemployment insurance isn't keeping people from taking jobs, Biden then announces this.
We're going to make it clear that anyone collecting unemployment who is offered a suitable job must take the job or lose their unemployment benefits.
Basically kind of an admission that the critics on that were really right. You cannot incentivize laziness. How many times must liberals learn this lesson before they embrace economic measures that motivate people to get up and get to work? At least this is a step in the right direction. But there is another alarming trend that we have seen under this administration: rising prices and inflation. Many things we use all the time are getting really, really expensive. Gas, beef, pork, chicken, lumber. There are many examples right now. Take a look at some of these numbers. The price of wholesale chicken wings up almost 95% from this time last year. That's an explosion. That's according to the Department of Agriculture. And for anybody working on their home, doing any work, maybe building a home, lumber prices are up 280%. There's a major concern about a lumber supply shortage that can't keep up with demand, not to mention the prices of homes themselves, which are through the roof in many markets across the country. We're seeing home prices explode. And how about those skyrocketing gas prices? In many places, drivers are paying about $1 more a gallon than just a few months ago. Take a look at this report from Forbes back in March. Since last November 3, Election Day, the average price per gallon of regular gas in the U.S. has skyrocketed by 75 cents. The markets clearly see the Biden-Harris administration as one that will work to inhibit U.S. oil production. And gas prices set to spike even higher after that massive cyber attack shut down the Colonial Pipeline, which delivers about 45% of all the fuel to the bustling East Coast. The pipeline runs from Texas all the way up here to New York Harbor. There's no word on when the main line, including the gasoline side, is going to be operational. Gas prices are up all along the East Coast. We're even starting to hear about gas stations that are running out of fuel. Not good. Those skyrocketing gas prices and Biden's loose monetary policy and uncontrolled spending have many economists concerned about hyperinflation, like the kind experienced in this country in the 1970s under Jimmy Carter. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve has refused to raise interest rates, which has long been the method of tamping down inflation. An interesting story today in The Hill suggesting that Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell are abandoning economic fundamentals. Quote, "It has become clear the Fed has effectively jettisoned the approach that guided monetary policy since the great inflation of the 1970s. Now, in the 1970s and in the early 80s, most of you remember inflation in this country exploded up big. The Fed raised interest rates in the early 80s to get it under control, which then caused a recession, of which Reaganomics, Ronald Reagan, pulled us out of. Our country exploded, our economy exploded in the mid-1980s. We did well after all that. Since then, whenever there's been a threat of inflation, rates go up. They push rates up to prevent a looming disaster. Whenever they see any kind of indications inflation is coming, they just raise rates. That's how they kind of tamp it down. Apparently, though, that's not what's happening right now, and that could be a reason to be nervous. Another potential bad sign, an explosion in the U.S. money supply, which is something I learned a lot about today. It refers to the physical currency that is currently in the economy. In March of last year, the U.S. money supply was at $4 trillion. Today, it is closing in on $19 trillion in 14 months. That's crazy. That indicates many potential issues, one of which is printing trillions of dollars out and handing out checks to people. If this stuff is a bit confusing, and I know that it is, we're about to make it very simple with Steve Forbes here in just a few seconds. But first, economists also keeping an eye on the Consumer Price Index, which is an indicator of inflation as well. The red bar is where we are. You can see it's almost double where we were last March.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.